was strengthened by God. And Hezekiah decided that he was going to basically refuse to pay tribute, refuse to serve Sennacherib, which was the original agreement. And so Sennacherib is sending emissaries to him because he doesn't want a two-fronted war. He wants to subdue Jerusalem as quickly as possible so that he can get on about the business of consolidating his kingdom. So as we start, we're going to be starting with chapter 36, verse 1. And Esther's going to read for us. And let me make sure I've got this thing working here. I've had some trouble with my mouse this morning. 36:1, starting 36:1.
Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defensed cities of Judah and took them.
Yes, okay, so this was probably around 700 BC when and Assyria reportedly sacked over 40, probably 46 or more cities, and took over 200,000 prisoners during this period of time. Remember that they had started with Israel, and now they were in Judea. They were attacking the nation of Judah. And if you go to 2 Kings, I'm going to go to 2 Kings 18:1. Give me just a minute here, and I'll get to it. And I'm going to read this, basically just read this quick passage for you. It came to pass in the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, that's the northern kingdom, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Abi, daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father did, remove the high places and break the images and cut down the groves and break in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and he called it Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the other kings of Judah, nor any that were before him. For he clave to the Lord and departed not from following him, but kept his commandment which the Lord commanded Moses. And the Lord was with him, and he prospered whithersoever he went forth. And he rebelled against the king of Assyria and served him not. So you see that now he's basically presenting a bit of a thorn in the king's side. All right. And so that's the verse we just read right there, 2 Kings 18, verses 6 and 7. And so we know that the king of Assyria is just a little bit perturbed. And then we go to verses 13 and 14, and we look at this. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah, did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against the fenced cities of Judah and took them. This is basically the same or parallel that we're seeing in Isaiah. Okay, and so we see that Hezekiah sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, "I have offended, return from me." So apparently he offered to mollify the king of Assyria, and agreed to pay him a tribute, which is probably what he was supposed to have done in the first place. Okay, and Hezekiah here. This is a note. Remember, we told you that they sacked. That Hezekiah gave him the silver in the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house, and even stripped the gold from the doors of the temple and from the pillars which were overlaid, and gave them to the king of Assyria so that he could extract that toll, basically trying to avoid the same fate that the other cities in Judea had suffered. Okay, and then we get to verse 2 and takes us back into Isaiah, and again this parallels the events of 2 Kings chapter 18.
And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem unto King Hezekiah with a great army, and he stood by the conduit of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field.
Now, there's kind of a bit of irony in this location, but as we note, the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish, which is about 25 miles southwest of Jerusalem. Okay, Lachish is where he had been busy confronting the Egyptians, and the Egyptians had turned tail run. And it's interesting to note that that archaeologists have found. Remember, when we talked about how the Bible was written and how it was inscribed. We talked about methods of recording. We talked about scratching or scraping notes onto pieces of pottery. And there is a note from one of the commanders about being overrun in the city of Lachish and asking for support, and it's known as the Lachish letter. And we note that he met them at the conduit in the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field. Now, I'm not sure where the fuller's field is exactly, but I think it's somewhere near one of the water reservoirs outside of Jerusalem. And I note, if you go back to Isaiah 7, we note that Hezekiah's father Ahaz was also confronted there by Isaiah and shared Jashub, his son, and note that he had another son named a younger son than that, named Meher-halal-Shashbaz. And we note that this word means a remnant shall return. Meher-halal-Shashbaz means flies to the prey. Okay, and so we see that Isaiah did what many prophets did, and that is that they named their children as, in a prophetic fashion. And so we see that this is the same place. The upper pool and the highway of the fuller's field, where they have met him. Apparently, it was a safe place to meet. Okay, and so this is where the Lord told Ahaz not to fear the invasion that was coming. The alliance between Rezin of Syria and the king of Israel, the northern kingdom. Okay, as we get to verse 3, go ahead and read.
Then came forth unto him Eliakim. I
know these are hard words to pronounce. That's okay.
Hilkiah's son, which was over the house of Shebna, the scribe, and Jonah, Asaph's son, the recorder.
And Jonah was basically the recorder, the secretary. And so we see that there are three people who were sent there to match the three emissaries that have been sent from the king. And we note that it's close enough, that this location is close enough to the outside of the city that Rabshakeh is going to be able to raise his voice and address those who were on the city wall, manning the parapets, if you will, and speak to them. And it's interesting to note that he speaks to them in their own language, as opposed to the Assyrian language or the Aramaic, which was also, incidentally, the official language, became the official language of Babylon as well. Okay, so he says, go ahead and read that for me.
And Rabshakeh, said unto them, Say ye now to Hezekiah, Thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, What confidence is this within thou trustest?
Go ahead, one more.
I say, sayest thou, but they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on them dost thou trust, that thou rebellest against me? So
what is he asking? He's asking, who do you think you've made an alliance with that you think that you can withstand the Assyrian army, is what he's asking here. And of course, he's also noting he's refused to refer to King Hezekiah as a king. Okay, we note that is a moment of disrespect. And then he compares the king of Assyria, calls him the great king, so much greater than Hezekiah. So he both belittles Hezekiah and exalts his own king at the same time. And so he says, where are you getting this confidence, this false confidence? If you go to the American Standard, it says, what confidence is this wherein? And then he says, I say, thou counsel and strength for the war are but vain words, empty words, unprofitable words. Who do you trust now that you have rebelled against me? Okay. And then verse 6.
Lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, whereon if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all that trust in him.
Yeah, now this grammatical device is known as a simile. Okay, he's referring to Egypt, but he calls them a broken reed. Okay, a weak reed. You know how sometimes if you're working with wood or something and it's weak and it breaks, or you're breaking a piece of wood and a splinter will get in your hand. Well, this is what he's talking about here, a broken reed. If you try to use it, it will snap. Okay. I used to play baseball, and one of the most dangerous things I ever saw was a bat that split flying across the field, and they can do a lot of damage. So he says, he calls Egypt a broken reed, not worth depending upon. And so he actually speaks the truth here. Egypt was notorious for making alliances and then backing out on them. Okay. One of the reasons why God said don't make alliances with other nations. Okay. And then we get to, we look at Ezekiel, and we see that Ezekiel has actually, God has actually prophesied against Egypt for just exactly that reason. And again, we see the phrase staff of reed to the house of Israel, undependable, okay? When they took hold of thee by the hand, thou didst break and rend all their shoulder. And when they leaned upon thee, thou breakest and madest all their loins to be at a stand. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will bring a sword upon thee and cut off man and beast out of thee. God was not appreciative of the fact. First off, he wasn't appreciative of the fact that they ignored him and they made alliances with these nations. But then he wasn't appreciative of the fact that they turned tail and ran and deserted them. Okay? And we get to verse 7.
But if thou say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and said to Judah and to Jerusalem, ye shall worship before this altar?
Yeah, now, that was a misunderstanding. I'm not sure how they miscalculated that whenever they mentioned that, because when Hezekiah did that, he took away all the groves and the altars and the idol worshiping sites, okay? For some reason, they misunderstood that. They thought that was an affront to God. Or maybe he was twisting the words just a little bit, because Rabshakeh was a very skilled at turning and twisting words and convincing people of basically a lie. So what it says here is not the truth. Second Kings back to 18, I'll repeat 4 and 5, where he says he took the high places, broke the images, cut down the groves, break in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. Remember the serpent? Whenever he said you look upon the serpent, and then when the serpent bites you, you look upon the serpent and you'll be healed. Okay, and Jesus used that same analogy when he said, as the serpent was raised in the wood in the wilderness, so shall I, when I be lifted from the earth, bring all men to me. Okay, so for unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it and called it Nehushtan, and he trusted in the Lord God of Israel. So this is a reference to him actually breaking down the idol worshipers' sites. And then we get to verse 8.
Now therefore, excuse me, give pledges, I pray thee, to my master the king of Assyria. I will give thee 2,000 horses, if thou be able on thy part to set riders upon them. So
he says, pay me the tribute, and in turn I'll give you 2,000 horses. Now, whether he really intended to do that or not, or he used it as a device, this was a taunt. Do you even have men who can ride these horses, is what he's asking here, of course. And he knows that they've been making deals with it, with that kings before them had traded horses with the Egyptians, okay, and chariots. And so he's rather sarcastic in this regard. And so he says, if you can put riders on them, we'll give you 2,000 horses. And then he gets to the point. He's making the point that they don't have people to put them on these horses. And then he gets to this. If you don't have that, how are you going to stand up against me? Read verse 9.
How then wilt thou turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen?
So we get the impression here that whether or not whether or not Hezekiah had made an alliance with Egypt, somehow or another, the king of Assyria, Sennacherib, surmised that they had done that because there was Egypt. There was Egypt right there in Samaria, in the Palestine area, fighting against them, and he must have assumed that that was the case. But in any way, he accuses them of siding with the Egyptians, and then he says, the captain of the least of my master's servants, a captain of 100, they have captains of hundreds and captains of thousands, and he says, 100 of my men can beat your guys. Basically what he's saying, okay? And so he says, am I now come up without Jehovah? Go ahead and read that for me.
Am I now come up without the Lord against this land to destroy it? The Lord said unto me, go up against this land and destroy it.
Now, that cannot be true. But then on the other hand, we do have this, okay? First off, he's claiming that he's got Jehovah on his side. But if you go back to Isaiah 10, we see that God has prophesied against the Assyrians, okay? But he prophesied against the northern kingdom, against Israel, and says he's going to send Assyria against Israel, and he's prophesied this to the northern kingdom. Now, in all probability, that was made known to the king of Assyria through the course of discussing or interrogating prisoners. And so he says that he uses Assyria against the northern kingdom. And they assumed that probably meant that they would have carte blanche to go and take over the whole country. Get to verse 11.
And then Eliakim and Shebna and Joah unto
Rabshakeh.
Thank you, Rabshakeh. Speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in the
Syrian language.
In Syrian language, for we understand it, and speak not to us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall.
And so you see, now they're asking them, they're saying, don't speak to us in Hebrew, speak to us in Aramaic, because we speak that language. They don't, talking about the people behind them on the walls. Okay, and so obviously they didn't want them to be privy to those negotiations, but that was Rabshakeh's plan all along. Rabshakeh wasn't just talking to the king. He was talking to the people, and we're going to find that out here in the next coming verses, okay? Verse 12.
But Rabshakeh said, hath my master sent me to thy master, and to thee to speak these words? Hath he not sent me to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their own piss with you?
Okay, so what are we talking about here? We're looking at, he's giving them a graphic representation of what happens if they besiege Jerusalem. They will be without food, without water, okay? And they will be reduced to some serious dire straits as they do that. Okay, the crudest means of survival is what he talks about, and so he's talking to them. He's threatening them. He's saying, "You're going to be paying for this decision." Okay, all right. Now, 13 and 14. Here he is. He's screaming out even louder now, so that they can hear.
Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language and said, hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus saith the king, let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you.
Okay, in the first place, here we go again. There's only one king, the king of Assyria. Hezekiah is not really the king. And so he says, don't trust your king, all right? That's important, and we'll get back to that later, okay? And verse 15.
Neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria.
So they're saying, don't Don't let Hezekiah tell you that God says you're going to be safe. You're not going to be safe. So now he said, don't trust in the king. Don't trust in God. All right. And then he continues on and he offers them an agreement and kind of really gilds the lily here. Go ahead.
Hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me, buy a present, and come out to me, and eat ye every one of his vine, and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards.
What is he saying here? He's saying, come off the walls, open up the gates. I'll let you come out and enjoy the freedom and enjoy your food until it's time for us to journey to another country that's like yours. All right? The Assyrians did not do that with their prisoners. We see engravings on walls and on stelae that show the Assyrians marching their prisoners off with hooks in their nose and hooks in their jaws, and we note that the Assyrians were famous for doing things like skinning their prisoners and throwing their hides on the wall to frighten their invaders away. Okay, they were very fierce, and they had that reputation, and they worked hard to cultivate it. So I'm really, you have to wonder whether or not they would have fallen for that. Okay, but it's a bribe and it's a lie. Okay, and then he goes back to this.
Beware lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria?
And so now he's attacked the king. He said, don't trust the king, don't trust God. And he says, don't trust in your sense of national pride. All the other nations have fallen to us, and you're going to fall too. Okay. And so he does this. Read these words. I know you're going to have trouble with those, but that's okay. Give it a shot.
Where are the gods of Hamath and Arphad? Where are the gods of
Sepharvaim?
Yeah. And have they delivered Samaria out of my hand?
Now nobody knows for sure where Sepharvaim is, but Hamath and Arphad are two cities. Let me see. It looks to me like one of them is on the northeast side of the Jordan, and one of them is a part of Syria. And then, of course, we note that the city of Samaria was destroyed. But Sennacherib is taking credit for things that he did not do. His father and his grandfather before him did these things. We note that Sargon II, or Tiglath-Pileser, defeated Arphad in 740, and Sargon, his father, defeated Hamath in 720. And either Shalmaneser or Sargon destroyed Samaria. Sennacherib did not have anything to do with that. Okay, but he's taking credit for it. And I guess he's speaking to them on a national sense, reminding them of what has happened. Of course, we do have to note that he has taken Samaria and he has taken the northern kingdom, and he is about to rout the Egyptians and chase them all the way back into Egypt in the process. Okay, all right. So then we get to verse 20.
Who are they among all the gods of these lands that have delivered their land out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand?
All these other gods are weaker than mine, weaker than my God, weaker than my king. Your God is too. That's basically what he's saying here. Your God's not going to deliver you if they couldn't help. And we look at, and I want to bring this to you. This is from Ecclesiastes, and keep in mind those things that we did. And one scholar, this isn't me, this isn't my observation, but a thought did come to mind as I went through that this proverb from Ecclesiastes says that if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Rabshakeh has chopped away each of these strands of their bond, their strength of confidence. He thinks that that's what he's doing. Has it worked? Next verse.
But they held their peace and answered him not a word, for the king's commandment was saying, answer him not.
Okay, they obeyed the king. All right, keep going.
Then came Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, that was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, to Hezekiah with their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rabshakeh.
Remember that's that sign of anguish, that sign of distress. You tear your clothes in frustration and in sorrow and sadness. And so they are apparently pretty intimidated by this. And so they go back to Hezekiah, apparently with the impression that they're in some serious trouble. Okay. And of course, we note that this is that Hezekiah then is going to, as we continue next week, we'll see that Hezekiah will consult Isaiah, and Isaiah will strengthen him. But in the meantime, this is where we will leave it, with them basically going back to the king with their tail between their legs to give him the news that they're in serious trouble. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments? Take a break back at the top of the hour for our service. Thank you.